Thanks, y'all, for jumping in. We're going to hang out for a couple minutes. I know Evan is going to be here in a minute or two. This is Ben. We are going to talk about the big men in this NBA draft. That includes all the top guys. That includes some of the guys you'd expect to go later in the lottery, first round, some second round guys as well. We're going to try and cover as much of them as possible. We're going to take questions. And of course, have some good discourse here. At least that's what we're hoping for. So I know that Evan is going to want to talk about, the top three guys to start. We got Chet Holmgren, Jabari Smith, Paolo Banchero. Those guys are obviously on a tier of their own. They're in the same. They're in that tier with Jaden Ivey. Of course, he's not a big man, but those four guys all expected to go 1, 2, 3, or 4 in some order. Jaden Ivey probably the fourth guy, but Evan's going to come on here in a sec. He's going to help us out for a bit. But Chet Holmgren, obviously a guy you are drafting for potential. Paolo Banchero, probably a guy you are drafting. He's the safest of these top three guys, and Jabari Smith is a little bit of your wild card, if you ask me. So let's get into it. I know Evan's on here. He's going to talk in a second. He's going to really get into it. After those guys, there's quite a few big men who could go, a number of different ways, including Jeremy Sohan, who you could argue is a small ball five. We won't talk about him too much just because he's 6'9". He's probably more of a forward right now. But we're going to talk Jalen Duren. We're going to talk Mark Williams, maybe even a little Walker Kessler, who's probably a second round guy you want to take a look at. Those are the big guys we're talking about for now. Evan, who do you want to start us off with?
What's going on? Can you hear me?
Yep, got you.
Perfect. Sorry about that. I had to re-download the app, man. Love to see it. Let's start with Jalen. Let's start with Jalen Duren. We're not gonna start. We're not gonna start off with Chet. Even though Chet is classified as a big, he's gonna play power forward in the NBA day one. So let's talk about centers. Jalen Duren is a center, but he's the most most futuristic NBA center, if that makes sense. I was in a couple of spaces earlier today, and they were talking about, guys like Rudy Gobert, they don't have a place in this league anymore. We'll never see centers like him thrive. Even like guys as slow as DeAndre Ayton, he has very slow foot speed, even though he's really agile and athletic. He has to bully his way to get to his spot, but he's not that quick. Jalen Duren is a modern Antonio McDyess. I've said on many occasions. Robert Williams, but with more spring to his game, that could just volleyball spike anything. I'm totally buying Jalen Duren being a top 8 or 9 center in the league in 5 years. We'll see what his measurements are. We talked about how he could very well be 6'9", and at 6'9", Robert Williams is 6'9" with his dreads. Given, I I love a good small ball five. I love a good versatile 4 and 5, and that's what Jalen Duren is right now. Granted, he'll probably grow. He's really young. He's 18. Left school a year early. Played in probably the worst system you could probably play in Memphis. But the reason why he's a top 5 guy in most boards or a top 8 solidified guy prospect that is the fact that he has a game on offense. He has a bag on offense. Mid-range jumpers, face-up game, obviously a post fade, turnaround fade. He'll have to work on a lot of these things, but they're there right now. They're there right now. I'm totally buying his ability to put the ball on the floor. I'm actually buying his ability on defense to guard on the wing. So like I said earlier, when you're a center, you have some heavy ass feet, man. Excuse my language, but you got some heavy, huge feet. You got long, heavy legs, and to be able to get up the floor, to be able to stop on a tee. I'm about to play pickup basketball here in a bit. This court is super dusty. If I'm over about to close out in the corner, I'm about to stutter my feet and slip. Jalen Duren, he has the most what's the word I'm looking for? He has the most
Steady feet.
steady and stabilization for someone his size. To not buy for fakes, to be able to recover. His second spring on a jump. So when you jump, obviously you use your arms and use your ability in your core. This guy floats in the air, and obviously we've never seen someone stay in the air for more than a second. But Jalen Durant is pretty damn close. I'm buying that in the future. Um,
He is definitely one of the better athletes in this draft. Maybe even not just for big men, but he might just be one of the best athletes in the draft. Period.
Definitely, without a doubt. Like I said, the volleyball spikes into the third and fourth row. That'll happen one every 5 games, doesn't happen a lot in the NBA. He has the ability to be able to grab the ball out of midair just because his timing and his acceleration for a lot of floaters or a lot of just lazy layups that guys don't think that someone of his size and his speed can be able to come across the lane and, and pin that on the glass, man. Like, um, he's not a top three guy solely because he doesn't have a lot more to his game besides the post fades, face ups. He obviously cannot dribble very well. He has to work on his free throws, his form, which will take a shooting coach like Chip a little longer than usual. But he's somebody who's going to be a very 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 good NBA player at least a starter level center for a decade to come as long as he stays healthy. So that is Jalen.
And we're talking, and we are also talking, of course, right before the NBA draft combine, which is taking place this week. So if the measurables come out, you find that he's not the 6'9" that people are reporting they think he might be. He ends up being 6'10", 6'11". Um, I think that changes perception of things as well. And that's obviously the measurables are going to change perceptions of a lot of guys because you look at it. It hurt Brandon Clark in his draft because he had basically uh, an even or a negative wingspan, and people said, "Oh, he's going to be a bad defender now because he has a negative wingspan." It was like half an inch negative wingspan. It really wasn't that big a deal, right? And he still turned out to be a pretty good player for the Memphis Grizzlies. So I would encourage people, don't read too far into the measurables, but some of them could be encouraging. You got to find your sweet spot with some of those, and a lot of those I think are going to be coming out tomorrow, the day after, and the discussion, of course, becomes way more interesting after tomorrow night when the lottery takes place, and we'll know for sure who is picking at what spot in the draft.
Yes, so this is very important because say the Spurs, it's a very small chance the Spurs fall back. I think it's like a 0.5, a small percentage, with the 10th or 11th pick. Uh, boring, boring fit, barring the ability to trade or move assets the way people think. Oh, we can just dump on Doug, Jay Rich, Lonnie, KPD. Teams know that there's not a lot of big men who are very NBA rotation ready outside of this next guy, and that is Mark Williams. Mark Williams has a very, very good chance of being the best center in this draft, with Jalen Durant obviously in the mix, solely because he's the most balanced heavy center in this draft. When I say heavy center, I don't have his official weight, but it's 250, 260, around Paolo's size, 6'11", but his ability to um, excuse me, his agile and his intangibles on defense really would have him being a guaranteed first round lock. Like, he's a top 20 lock. He would probably be a Charlotte Hornet. He would probably be an OKC if not there, solely because, like I said, you cannot guarantee this guy falling to 20. He basically had the most average season at Duke. There was a lot of highs, a lot of lows, but he was like the more stable glue guy on that team. When Paolo started the season rough, Adrian Griffin didn't even start the season with the team. He was injured. Trevor Kills has Trevor Kills moments. If you don't know, that is the streakiest shooter in this draft, who's probably going to be a second round guy. But when it comes down to it, Mark Williams, we're talking about him. He has lob threat ability, but he's really heavy, and he's more on the lines of like a Bam mixed with like Robert Williams, if that makes sense. Not really an offensive threat. Of course, the pick and roll is there. He has a float game. Post game needs some work. Touch around the rim kind of is a iffy thing with him. A lot. He didn't really utilize the glass a lot. He'll just go for that quick post hook, perfect swish, and then he'll end up hitting the back iron out. That type of touch can be taught. Obviously, Tim Duncan is one of the better mentors off the glass and whenever you are in the paint, and obviously that would be a big plus for him. I would love to see him in a Spurs jersey, but here's the thing between Mark Williams and Jalen Duren. Jalen Duren isn't necessarily a drop back center. A drop back center is somebody who's too slow to front and get to cover somebody in the pick and roll when they get screened. He has to drop back. Jalen Duren has the ability to come up, to fight through it. Mark Williams is a drop back center. You know who else is a drop back center, Ben?
Who's that?
Jakob Pertl. You can't have two.
You can't have two of them on the same team.
You can, but you really shouldn't, especially if you're the Spurs.
Sure.
Because
if you're a team making decisions, you can do whatever you want, but that doesn't mean you should.
So Mark Williams is, like I said, rotation ready, and Mark Williams will be a center that you could play next to Zach Collins. Zach Collins can play the 4, but that tandem is gonna get eaten alive on, I want to say, both sides of the court, but there will have to be both in the paint. Be able to, the variation of the NBA, knowing that you can be 5 out like how the Clippers did a couple years ago, and they passed the ball around. Terrence Mann corner 3 over Rudy Gobert, and now Rudy Gobert's career is kind of just like, we can't trade him, but we should. But no one wants to pay him for this much amount of money for that discredit in his game. So here's what I'm saying: Mark Williams could be a Spur, but that means Jakob Pertl wouldn't be a Spur. Who are the other centers that the Spurs could grab that fit their what do you want to call it, pedigree, their competitive timeline? Obviously,
timeline and the mold that they're looking for. A guy who their developmental timeline, if you will.
Exactly, and obviously DeAndre Ayton, the way he went out last night, it was a topic of discussion for the foreseeable future, and obviously teams like Portland, Detroit, maybe even Dallas. Dallas can free some cap space, and that would be you passed on Luka, but you end up getting the number 1 pick. So with DA eventually. So I don't know.
That situation is going to be discussion for another time, because the Spurs are one of the few teams who can offer a max contract right now,
exactly,
without having to go through any gymnastics.
Exactly. And to give an example of a center who can guard the pick and roll, who can guard on the perimeter, it's people like Onyeka Okongwu. It's people like it's not the Clint Capella player himself, but it's the build. If you're able to have an initiator, someone who's like a true pass first point guard, someone like, I don't want to say like DeJounte, but DeJounte can make the slip down passes. We don't really see a lot of alley oops in the Spurs system. I think we saw maybe 2 this year, or last year. But when it comes down to it, this next guy who I want to talk about, Christian Coloco, would be the next best option for the Spurs because he played a lot of 4 at Arizona. He's 6'10". He's very agile. This is a recorded space. I'm not going to be disrespectful. I'm not going to say these people's names, but there are people. I said this in an earlier space. There are people on draft Twitter, or not draft Twitter, they're actual analysts. These people are getting paid salaries given that have the most terrible analysis for some of these guys because they do not know what they're talking about. And Christian Coloco was quoted in one of these articles saying that he can stretch the floor at NBA level. This dude took 3 college threes and missed all of them. That is one of the top people from I'm not going to say the brand because it'll make it obvious what I'm talking about. One of the top people, analysts that is, talking about somebody who's a first round pick, and given who the majority of this audience is, for the most part, no offense to anybody, but y'all are draft casuals when it comes down to this knowledge. you guys will buy into this stuff, and then as soon as he airballs a three or it has a terrible read or something, that type of characteristics can just follow somebody for the foreseeable future, and that's what I do not want to happen to Christian Coloco. He's his own prospect. There's really no one that can go ahead.
And with Christian Coloco, he shoots pretty decently from the free throw line, so the indicators are there that he maybe could space the floor, but there wasn't any tangible evidence from the way he played at Arizona. You know, if you want to talk about a guy, if you want to talk about projecting out, sure, that's one thing. But to say that right now he is a floor spacer would be inaccurate. And I would also say that I don't know if the measurements are accurate, but at Arizona, I believe he was listed as a true 7-footer.
Oh, that's news to me. I was looking at 6'10", 6'11", but that could 100% be completely inaccurate. Yeah,
we're going to find out at the combine, so we'll see
exactly.
For sure. Because there are a lot of the college teams. They don't all use a universal system like the NBA does. So they could very easily have been exaggerating. So we'll find out.
And Coloco he played a lot of 4 at Arizona. The one NBA player that a lot of Spurs fans could possibly know that I can compare to, at least for my opinion, that is Jalen Smith. Somebody who has some post game, somebody who has a lot of we actually have to build him into somebody. He's that raw. Christian Coloco was just bigger, and he has an NBA body right now. He has really broad shoulders. He has a decent jumping ability, not really a lob threat, but the mid-range jumper, face up, turnaround, I can see that. After, of course, a good stint in Austin, maybe the full year, the same primo treatment. But Jock Landale on this team, Zach Collins on this team, these guys are expendable when you draft somebody like Christian Coloco. Solely because Zach Collins is $7 million. That's not that bad. Jock Collins is a minimum contract, but we're talking about this foreseeable future of this team. We're talking about 5-6 years from now. You want the same people on this team to build chemistry, right? We're going to see what they can be and what their true worth is. Christian Coloco with 25 is, I don't want to say the perfect pick, but if you're banking on this next guy we're going to get into, you probably already know I'm about to talk about, Ben, another international prospect. This guy played overseas, but man, before I get into this, let me make this clear again. These guys have bust potential. Coloco has bust potential. Ismail Kamagate is the next guy we're going to get into. He has the most. What's the word I'm looking for? He has a high ceiling, but a very, very low floor. Long story short, good God.
There's a lot of volatility.
Yes. So, what's the best attribute about him? He's definitely showcasing a lot on the defensive side of the ball. He's locking down Victor Wembanyama, the next year's #1 pick, on multiple occasions. They're playing the same league. Obviously, that's a matchup people like to draft to or like to focus on. But when I'm looking at his game, when I'm looking at his touch around the rim, it's a lot like guys I mentioned earlier. Like it's not only there, but it's fairly ugly. It's fairly raw. If you're getting the ball on if you're asking for the ball, say your point guard is dribbling, he's stuck, he has 10 seconds left, and you're going for a high ball screen. He picks the guy, and the guy backs up a bit, gives it to you. You know you can't shoot threes, man. You know you can't shoot threes. You pump fake, and you have 2 or 3 dribble moves. The guy doesn't buy it, and it's a turnover. You should know you shouldn't call for the ball that high. If you are 19, 20 years old, and you are a rim runner, you are a shot blocker, you are somebody who is a top pick in the NBA draft, you don't do boneheaded things like that. You don't make cross-court passes damn near blindfolded just because the ball is falling out of bounds. That's a turnover on your stat sheet that not a lot of people will pay attention to later down the line and give you the benefit of the doubt. But a lot of these mistakes, these boneheaded mistakes, I can see Kamagate coming to Austin, that is, the Austin Spurs, not San Antonio, for a good while. And I can see him working on that and turning into a Mitchell Robinson, a baby Deandre Ayton, because he has a little bit of face up to his game. He can switch on a lot of wings. He's a more skinny, raw Oneko Okongwu type of build for a center. And when I'm looking at him right now, 6'11", 7'3" wingspan, man, at 25, you should have a good feel of the amount of centers that are available. And if Coloco's gone, which he could be, if Mark Williams is going to be gone, Jalen Duran's going to be gone, you have to grab this guy because, man, at 38, you're looking at some of these other international centers who are just as raw, don't have any real star potential, and you're basically banking on them being a backup with maybe 2 contracts in the NBA at the very very most, at the very very least. That is.
And
So
you're really hoping at 38, if you haven't gotten your centers yet, you're really in trouble. If you haven't used, if you potentially haven't used the 9, 20, or 25 as the Spurs, if you haven't used that on any bigs, and you're banking, well, we'll find a guy at 38 who we like,
mm-hmm.
you're in for some trouble. Like you
Yes.
mentioned, there's not enough guys there that should make you feel comfortable drafting a potential starter in year 2 or 3, maybe,
Yeah.
depending on what your timeline is. So it's definitely a guy who needs to. They need to be more ready to come in, and maybe that means they spend the first year in Austin and work on some things like you're talking about with Kamagate. But for the most part, if the Spurs are drafting a big man, this has to be someone who is pretty ready made and ready to go. And I would argue that Jalen Duren has, I mean, he has the most NBA ready body. I don't know about, I wouldn't say most NBA ready game, but certainly his body will hold up over the course of an 82 game season.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Kamagate, we'll close on him. Kamagate is somebody who will be an NBA center, who will have a lot of flashes of just the crazy alley oops, the Kai Jones type athleticism for someone of that size. Even though it's not that quite like up there, he's somebody that would be a perfect Spur at 25 because at this next we'll talk about this next guy, but at 38, if Walker Kessler does fall to us at 38, man. Moment of silence. Sorry, moment of silence. Walker Kessler is a walking shooting foul in the NBA. Walker Kessler has crazy shot blocking skills. Shot blocking skills aren't just straight up from someone driving at you from the paint. It's being able to block someone from the back. It's being able to trail someone at the pick and roll. He's not super slow, but he's slow. He's not Taco Fall slow, but he's Jakob Pertl slow. He's basically the worst case scenario for the Spurs at 38 if John Butler isn't there, if Kamagate, Coloco, all these other guys aren't there. And John Butler is more of a 4. He's really skinny. He's not somebody we're going to talk about today, but Walker Kessler, he started his career at North Carolina. His high school tape is insane. It makes him look like the number 1 pick. This kid was knocking down threes, sidestep threes. Of course, his league, his division probably wasn't the best, barring where he was playing for. Don't remember, but he transferred to Auburn, had a much better season, actually got some decent playing time. And they didn't really utilize him on offense. He took a couple threes, picking pops, knocked down a few, but that jump shot, moment of silence again.
It is broken.
The ugliest jumper in the draft. It's not Michael Kid Gilchrist. It's not on that level, but you should not shoot from the side of your face. The ball should not should not brush your ear. Like I don't understand how it goes in, but he shoots and loads it up like I don't know, man. Like he's shooting a watermelon, dude. Like seriously, like Walker Kessler to me will be an NBA center, but he is the worst backup you give playing time in the league. That's just my prediction. And he
I'm not. I don't feel as harshly about him. I mean, he was the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. He was, I think, second in the nation in blocked shots. I mean, there's something that's going to translate there for people. It's not going to be his offense because, as a guy he's like what 7'1", I think he's listed at. They never went to him in the post and said, "Okay, go to work, post that guy up and get us a bucket." Auburn never asked him to do that. So, and he wasn't a particularly great 3-point shooter on the little volume he took. So it's definitely concerning his offense. But I think on defense, I think he should get a little more credit. He's not so quick and he doesn't move his feet so well that he's going to be able to get out there on switches. He is, as you described earlier, a drop back center on defense. But that's a guy who you're talking about. You got to shoot over a 7'2" guy who also has a plus wingspan. I mean, you got to get that ball up and over those outstretched arms. I mean, we're not quite Boban arms, but they're close. But I would agree with you. Even at 38, that pick would make me uncomfortable.
I wouldn't say I'm uncomfortable, but I would be like, I would roll my eyes. I'd be like, God damn it! I'd be like, I guess, he would fit. Obviously, I would love, a top pick, maybe Jabari Smith. We'll find out tomorrow. Maybe his teammate, be a Spur. But Walker Kessler is, again, I'm not trying to be rude. I know a lot of these guys, but barring just because I follow a lot of people on draft Twitter, a lot of these prospects will end up hearing this kind of stuff eventually, especially if we talk about them and not at them, but just like quote tweet or whatever. Like I plan on doing, but Walker Kessler has potential to be like a starter in the NBA. Let me say potential, but the problem is that at his height and his body frame, he doesn't move his arms to the side very well. He has to go straight up and has to swipe down the block. That screams 2 or 3 fouls in the first half to me every single game he's in, because people are going to attack that shit. Excuse my language. And he's either going to get dunked on or he's going to have a super, super, super hard foul because he can get up, but like his heavy arms and his shoulders that aren't broad, not broad shoulders, very heavy arms that are said move slow, can't swipe left to right, but has to do these blocks that are impressive. But he's that long, he's that tall, and I guess the SEC didn't really expect it this year. 5 blocks a game. Jeff Whitty, who else has had that before? I can't remember too many people, but
yeah, I mean, I think he was 4.5 blocks a game. It was insane. I think the only guy to beat him was a guy from Western Kentucky, blanking on his name, but I think that he's going back to school for another year. So one less shot blocker available.
But, no, for real. Yeah,
we're getting to the part here. We're getting to the section where we want to get questions from you guys. Evan, is there another one or two guys you want to talk about, or are you ready for questions?
I'm ready for questions if people have them, but we'll keep the discourse going if not.
Feel free to request. We'd love to hear from you guys. We want to answer any questions you have. Just hit us up. It doesn't even necessarily need to be about big men in this draft. Ask us anything about the draft, especially with the lottery coming tomorrow night. We are more than happy to talk about it.
Oh yeah, and Ben, we'll have to get in contact with Joe to see what the plans are, but for tomorrow to finalize those. But I'm really excited. No matter where we pick, I know the Spurs are going to have a lot of options. One thing I wanted to make clear is that it's not. Well, this is super easy to understand. It's not easy to make trades in the NBA. I know people don't want Lonnie back on this team for the most part. Same thing with like Jay Rich, even though he's a good piece. That's $13 million. Same thing with Doug. That's a lot of money right there. It's a max contract between the two of them. Somebody help me here. That's a max contract between the two of them. Dead weight on this team. We can open up more cap space. We can have a lot of young prospects who want to be Spurs coming on this team. Dyson Daniels said he wants to be a Spur. His teammate Marjon Beauchamp said he wants to be a Spur months ago. Jalen Smith was linked to us. Mo Bamba was linked to us. These type of things are very, very possible. And I see. We have a guest on the stage. We'll get to you in a second. But when it comes down to it, you have to be able to say you have to be able to understand the Spurs are in the position where they're mid. They're the same mid team that they've been the past 2-3 years. They want to get younger, but they want to get better, and they want to get stronger, and they want to find who fits what role. So that's gonna mean keeping DeJounte happy. That's gonna mean swinging on Zach LaVine. That's gonna mean swinging on a lot of these guys who are NBA rotation ready, who we have to trade up to get possibly. Go ahead. Go ahead, man. How are you?
Hey, how you doing? I have 2 questions for you. If
Go ahead.
by the grace of God, the Spurs are able to get that number 4 pick, who would you draft? Would you draft Bonchero? And would you give Ayton a max contract? Those two questions. I'm done.
Gotcha. I'm assuming the question was a top four pick, because at number four, I think Ben Sherrill would not be there. But a top four pick would basically mean you're in the mix of Chet, Jabari, Paolo. There's no real number one answer because it depends on fit. But we'll see tomorrow. Obviously, Paolo to me is the number one prospect. If the Spurs were to be number one, you would have to really consider Chet. But Paolo is definitely the number one prospect. Paolo is, I said this earlier in the space, he's smack dab in between rookie LeBron and rookie Michael Beasley as a prospect that has guard-like intangibles for someone his size. I know that's a kind of like a fat range, but he's like that. He's like that average 16, 17 point per game scorer a couple years from now that isn't a first option, but he is somebody that can get you scoring outbursts, that can create mismatches. He moves like a wing, 6'10", 6'11", just as tall as Jason Tatum. And I want to make this clear, he's faster than Jason Tatum. He's not a great of an athlete as LeBron, but he can get up, putbacks, crazy volleyball like Jalen Duran like spikes out of bounds. His one problem is his motor on defense and his ability to make the right reads and his basketball IQ. He has the ability to make the right passes and to create mismatches and create space. But a lot of these, Bart, don't judge me here, Ben, but these AAU like passes or plays or like he got structured from that in Duke. Like there was none of that at Duke for the most part. But he would make these, fancy no look passes where it's not necessary. You get trapped into a double team and have to jump skip pass into a turnover. That type of stuff, man. At your body height, at your weight, you should be able to post fade somebody, back somebody into the paint, and he has no post game. He thinks he's a wing. He thinks he's LeBron. He definitely thinks he can move and get to a space and get to a spot whenever he wants. That's not that case. He's NBA body, 250, not a high flyer, a 3, 4, and potential small ball 5, but not really a lot of rim protection. I would take him at 1 because you can have a chance. You have a real good chance of pleasing DeJounte, who's the number one guy until we can possibly swing on Zach LaVine, who can all make it just all worthwhile. Jakob Poeltl would need to be moved at this point if this team were to end up like that. Jakob Poeltl in that speed. Granted, this everyone would just kick it up a notch. We would need even someone like a Montrezl Harrell, a Miles Turner on this team, someone who can get up the floor. I know Montrezl Harrell may be not the most attractive name, but you need somebody that can has a high rim protection, high motor, spark plug energy, rim runner. You need that because, man, Jakob Poeltl, he wouldn't be a liability, but I guarantee a lot of people will be calling as soon as we get that number one pick. He's totally an asset you can flip. And DeAndre Ayton, sorry, Ben, you wanna go ahead?
Yeah, DeAndre Ayton is absolutely a guy you're gonna have to give a max to, just because you got to make the Suns at least think about matching. You got to make them. You just have to make them either spend the money and say, this is what you get for not extending him in the offseason before. You all messed up and we're going to make you pay for it. Or you're going to be able to say, oh, well, we signed DeAndre Ayton. This is pretty great. We can try and run him and Jakob Poeltl together. And if you sign him, obviously, if you sign him, it's going to be after the draft. So you have to we're going to have to see who they draft and see who becomes expendable in that case. But if the Spurs can sign a guy like DeAndre Ayton, you give him basically the max. I mean, that's on par with the rest of the guys in his draft class. We're talking about Luka, Trae Young, a couple other guys. DeAndre Ayton was the second or third best player on a Suns team that went to the finals last year. You can very well argue he deserves the max. And, there are cases to be made that maybe he doesn't deserve the max, but it really doesn't matter what you think because it matters what the NBA market thinks. And so if
Yeah.
teams say, well, he's worth a max to us, we're going to offer it, that's how it goes. And that's probably how it's going to go.
Yeah.
You always hear about players who get kind of ridiculous contracts and like, is he really worth that much? Well, to that team, he was. So now he gets the opportunity to play for the worth of his contract, essentially. But yes, Deandre Ayton, offer him the max, see what happens. What's the worst thing that happened? He says yes and signs with you, and you keep him. Oh no, we've got a young center who can play ball. Oh no, this is terrible. He's going to be able to grow with DeJounte Murray and our other young core guys. Oh no, we're in such a terrible spot.
Oh no, and a former number 1 pick. No,
Right. Like,
no.
there's not a whole lot of downside to that signing, but yes, offer DeAndre Ayton the max. And I would say to couple that with the other question, if the Spurs somehow end up in the top 4, I would even say if they end up at number 4, they're probably going to end up with Jaden Ivey. They don't want to be they don't want to end up with Jaden Ivey, but if you're at 4, it's hard to not draft him. And if you're doing that, you're probably drafting him with the intent of trading him.
I gotta disagree, but we'll talk about DeAndre Ayton first. That number that I was talking about the number 4 pick earlier, and I gotta disagree with you there. But DeAndre Ayton, let's talk about the contract. The Suns are not just gonna let him walk. Think about the Suns just letting this guy walk for nothing. You just let a number 1 pick walk for nothing. Impossible. It will have to be a sign and trade. Think about the teams that can offer him a sign and trade. Let's think. Oh, maybe the Knicks, Dallas, Portland, Indiana, a lot of these teams that are trying to, elevate themselves, and he has to want to go there. I want you to look up DeAndre Ayton, his words when he played against the Spurs, when they killed us at home. I believe the game was in January or December. Long story short, or February, if I'm not mistaken. Long story short, DeAndre Ayton basically praised us. He said he didn't even look at the camera. He was nervous. He said, "Yeah, man, those young boys, yeah, they know how to play. They know how to get up the floor. Shout out to Coach Pop, this and that." And he looked like he was just like he knew what was going on. He knew of rumors. So the prediction that I said on in Noah Magaro spaces. I know a lot of y'all hop in there. We kind of had disagreement, but I definitely feel that a Jakob Poeltl, Zach Collins, Doug, and maybe a pick swap for DeAndre Ayton is the best possible package deal.
Well,
because
I'm not sure you have to trade anything. He's a restricted free agent,
Mhm.
but if the Spurs, so I assume the Suns will offer him the qualifying offer so that they have the right to match whatever contract is offered.
Mhm.
Assuming
Yeah,
they do that, and the Spurs offer him a max, the Suns basically have to choose, because if they either choose to sign him or they don't. If they don't sign him, he ends up going with whoever he signs with. End of story. And if they sign him, then I think there's probably some language in there that says you signed this new contract, you can't be traded until a certain date, because the sign and trades are a little bit different because they don't have a team option and he doesn't have a player option. So I don't know if there's as much leverage to be had there. This is probably a Paul question. He's very good with this stuff. But my guess is I want to say it's much more straightforward than having to worry about a sign and trade.
Yeah, that outbid is going to be crazy though, because it's going to be in the 29-30 range. I don't know if he qualifies for that. It may be 28 if I'm not mistaken. Not trying to be a 2K GM, but I'm pretty sure it's 28, 29.
He hasn't played. I don't think he's played enough years to get into the next tier of max.
Yeah, and that's, man, let me tell you, that's scary to think about, because I want everyone to remember how our contracts are set up. Keldon needs to get paid next year, and he's definitely going to make around the same or maybe more than what DeJounte is making, probably around 17, 18 million. I'll be surprised if he makes 20, but that means that man better score 20 points per game every time now. Yeah, so if you're getting 20, so 20 million that is, but Keldon Johnson is due for extension. Trey Jones is also due for an extension. Zach Collins has a team option. It depends on how he plays. Obviously, he's expendable. KBD is probably not getting brought back. Lonnie's probably not getting brought back. And you're thinking about keeping DeJounte. Obviously, he's happy. Let's assume that's the case. We're floating around the 6, 7 seed. Let's maybe say best worst case scenario, we're not in the same circle we've been in, you would need to sign someone on the lines of like a Colin Sexton if you don't get Zach LaVine. Worst case scenario, Kyle Anderson. You have to spend money this summer because there's not many rotation ready rookies coming in that are going to be available at 2025. The best one will be Jake LaRavia. We've talked about him plenty of times. That's one of my favorite prospects and best fits for the Spurs. But the best case scenario, I'll make this clear. Everybody knows the Spurs are going to make all these chess moves. Brian Wright has every GM on speed dial. A lot of teams don't really mess with us, but we have the assets and the contracts with players that people want, or players that teams want that can make shit happen. Excuse my language, but granted, the 4 or 5 trades in one night type of scenarios aren't going to happen. They're going to be maybe 1 or 2, and they're going to be blockbusters. They're going to be 3 or 4 team, either mega trades or for a 1 or 2 team sign and trade superstar. That could happen draft night. It's from anyone down to, we'll wrap this up, Ben. I know you have to go, but anyone down from the James Hardens of the world to Ben Simmons, this whole free agency and all the way things are going to go this summer are going to be crazier than, I don't want to say ever, but it's going to be a lot of moving pieces. A lot of people requesting things, a lot of people shutting down, a lot of people maybe even making early retirement threats. Like, seriously, like, there's a lot, like, so many, John Wall, Russell Westbrook, these are $40 million contracts that are going to be moved. Seriously. So, yeah, that alone should be enough to let people know that teams are what the main point of this was, teams are going to be resilient to a degree to not make deals with the Spurs, knowing that we can really elevate and get back on the swing of things. Maybe a 4 or 5 seed with Zach and or Deandre Ayton. We'll see.
And the other part of that is those teams moving on from certain players means they're also admitting they're not in contention, which a lot of them don't want to be doing. They want to be contending, and or they won't be, and they just don't want to admit it, which you could argue is worse. But
Definitely.
so there are definitely some interesting situations to look out for, like you mentioned. Definitely John Wall and Russell Westbrook. I mean, both guys who have dealt with injuries, both guys who I'm sure there's no argument here that they are wildly overpaid right now.
Definitely, without a doubt.
So if you're a team that's taking on one of those contracts, you're probably saying, we're not competing right now. We'll take on the contract, maybe sell some tickets. But in order to take this contract on, you're going to give us something in return. We'll give you, whatever pieces match the salary.
Yeah. And it's a bidding war. Like, we got to remember, there's a lot of unhappy players in the NBA, many in our conference, in our division, that is. Being specific, honestly, that, could shake up a lot of things for our future. Zion not in this division means a lot of great things for the Spurs. The Mavericks being the same mid-team they were before this year, that has a lot to do with the Spurs. That could change a lot for our future. Granted, I know people and the easy thing to say to relay on Spurs Twitter is, oh, nobody wants to be here besides the people that want to get overpaid or the people that are past their prime. That is true with the old GM. Our new GM that has been running things, let me tell you, he's done a pretty good job. We have an all-star. We have a top 10 center and Jakob Poeltl on the best contract. We have 3 first-round picks. Be patient. We're not going to be winning championships for the next, who knows how long. But the Spurs are one of the more respected franchises. Every team knows they have to come with everything they have when they play the Spurs, and that pedigree will still be pushed on for the foreseeable future, without Pop, with or without DeJounte, and that is the most important thing. It's all about fit, and obviously the best player available. So,
Absolutely. And with that, we are going to close things out. We appreciate you guys coming on every week. We love this. We love talking to you. We love taking your questions. Evan and I should be doing a live show tomorrow night for the lottery. We will definitely let you all know if it's going to be as the lottery is going on or if it's going to be an immediate post lottery reaction. But either way, we will be on, we will be talking, and you'll even see our faces for better or worse. For those of us with radio faces, we apologize in advance. But we look forward to hearing from you guys. I think they're going to be able to take live questions and reactions as well tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. I'm sure we will get it tweeted out to you guys. And once again, thank you. And we look forward to hearing from you guys hopefully tomorrow and, of course, next week.
Yes, sir. And make sure you follow Ben at the Boomstein. Definitely a great follow. He's just running down this Project Spurs page, doing a great job. And if you have any questions, guys, just feel free to add us or just DM us, and we'll get back to you right away. So, like Ben said, definitely appreciate everyone stopping by, and we'll see you guys next week or tomorrow. That is, yep, we'll be back tomorrow. All right, peace.
Peace.